Greetings everyone, here I am again, and in this tutorial, I will demonstrate the initialization of the Recrosec authorization system within the Recrogrid framework and its key components. Recrosec is a module supporting various authentication systems, but for now, we'll focus on the currently considered most secure and widely used method. Our environment involves a Blazor SPA application utilizing .NET Core API calls. The client application will authenticate users using an OpenID Connect provider and make API calls using access tokens. For the demo, I'll use a sample application previously created for the Northwind database. The RGF is capable of using any standard OIDC provider. Currently, I'm using users and application registrations stored in Microsoft Entra ID. If someone is unfamiliar with this registration process or hasn't seen the example application creation, they can view it by clicking on the videos in the description. By the end of the tutorial, you'll know how to enable users to log into the program using OIDC, establish access groups for Northwind entities, associate these groups with roles, and assign users to roles. Before diving into the user-bound authorization system, I'll briefly mention the basic access control in RGF. Each entity has basic access settings, including create, edit, and delete operations affecting the form view. For example, if modification is allowed, the apply and OK buttons will appear for saving. This setting is determined by the CRUD options. By default, everything is enabled, but now I'll set it to only allow creating and reading. After refreshing the page, the toolbar buttons will change accordingly. If I open the form view, I won't be able to save the data because modification is not available. However, I can save data during creation. This access is also handled server-side, so even if someone hacks the client, the server won't execute the modification. This restriction is stronger than user permissions. Even if a user has permission to modify or delete a specific entity, if it's not enabled here, they won't be able to do so. I'm now deleting this. Additionally, there's a similar setting for columns or fields. Readable determines if the column can appear in the list view. If not enabled, the user won't be able to display the column in any way. However, there's an exception. The administrator can display any column. In the form view, the editable checkbox indicates if the field is editable. If unchecked, it's not editable. This is handled client-side and server-side too. If a field shouldn't be displayed in the form, it can be achieved by setting the form tab to 0. Let's try making it non-editable. This field is now read-only. I can't modify or delete it. Even if I hack the browser, the server won't allow modification. Let's look at another field. Now, I'll reset these. This was the basic access control where, regardless of permissions, we could determine the maximum allowed access. Now, let's dive in initializing Recrosec. On the Recrogrid framework website, under Quick Start, we'll find the steps required to initialize Recrosec. The first step is to make token handling available in the API. To do this, I'll install the Microsoft ASP.NET Core Authentication JWT Bearer package. I'll initialize the authentication service with this block. adding necessary namespaces. I'll add the authentication middleware. In the documentation, there are two configuration examples, one for Microsoft Entra ID and one for Duend, formerly Identity Server. I'll use Microsoft Entra ID now. Here, I need to provide the tenant ID, which I'll copy from the previously set up app registration. This will be it. And this is the application ID. I need to specify for RGF to make the identity menu item available. With this block, I'll enable the use of Recrosic. Setting enabled to true determines that settings are required for accessing all objects. Single user mode is needed initially to set up an administrator in whose name further configurations can be made. Auto create user allows the system to automatically register the user who logs in. And for the last two settings, it defines the name of the administrative role and the default role to which it automatically assigns the user. If someone runs the program in an insecure environment, these settings can be done also in the code, so they cannot be overridden in the configuration afterward. With this, the API configuration is complete. In the client application, with this block, I'll add the OIDC authentication service. Here again, I find two examples, and I'll use Microsoft Entra ID again. Now, I'll also set the tenant ID for the client. This will be the client's application ID. Since there's currently only one redirect URI, I don't need to specify it. And finally, I'll need the scope and the access token for accessing the API. I defined this during API registration. Now, I just need to make the login available in the GUI. I'll do this in the main layout. I'll only display the menu when the user is logged in. I'll add some formatting for minimal design. I'll build and launch both applications. I previously created some test users in the RGF demo group, and I'll log into the application with them. Here they are. David Lightman will be the administrator. Since I'm currently in single user mode and have enabled automatic user registration, the user appeared in RGF identity. Here, I'll designate him as an administrator. Once this is done, I'll disable single user mode. I'll restart the API. Refreshing the page. You can see that with the user, I can access the menu and entities, and I have full editing rights. I can also modify and delete. Now, I'll log in with the other users as well. First with Andrew. I'll log in quickly with the others too. Now, if I go back to David and refresh the list, you can see that all users have been added to the system. Here's Robert, for example, who only has the RGF user role. The RGF user role currently doesn't have any permissions, so all menu items are grayed out. And of course, even with a valid reference, he can't access the data. First of all, I'll determine that menu items for which there's no permission shouldn't be displayed, as this doesn't look nice. I just need to disable the always visible setting. If the type is menu and no displayable item, the menu itself won't appear. This way, I determined that it should only appear if the logged in user has permission for the specified entity. I'll refresh the page. And sorry, the product URL remained. So now the menu isn't displayed. I'll also remove this warning message. the end of the module, I'll summarize what we've achieved so far. We've successfully configured the client application for users to log in using OIDC. With the client access token, it can authenticate itself to the API. The API can then check if the client is authorized for access, recognize, and store users. In the next module, I'll demonstrate setting permissions. Click the video to continue. Thank you for your attention.